dealing against Janasiewicz, who is playing Punishing Jund. We saw him win with Esper. I thought he might be playing a blue deck this go-around, but he's not. So you've got Rietzl on your right. You've got Janasiewicz on your left. We're going to watch Punishing Jund versus Death and Taxes, two of the more honest decks in the format, as Rietzl is just going to start off with the Caracas and pass the turn back.
Traditionally a very good matchup for Punishing Jund, as it's just very good at picking apart small creatures and playing high-impact cards.
Janasiewicz with a Bloodstained Mire before passing the turn back. Rietzl going to take one off of that freshly played Horizon Canopy. Follow-up was going to be Thalia, Guardian of Thraben.
Paul throws it with almost a disengaged disgust into play. This is what I have.
It is your turn.
Perhaps not thrilled about playing against an opponent who is leading off with a Bloodstained Mire.
Well, that just means that a lot of your creatures are going to die.
Yeah.
That's all. Now, is there any spice here in Janasiewicz's deck?
Not particularly. I mean, he is playing 3 copies of Punishing Fire. He has a main deck Sylvan Library. But, you know, it's all the usual suspects. 3 Bloodbraid Elf, 4 Confidant, 4 Deathbright Shaman, 4 Tarmogoyf, Abrupt Decay, Lightning Bolt, Liliana the Veil is the removal. So, you know, nothing really unorthodox. A couple odd numbers here and there, but, you know, all the stuff you'd expect to see.
Janasiewicz going to go get a Badlands with that Bloodstained Mire. See if he's got any sweet plays. He can just play Lightning Bolt this turn if he wants to, especially with the Caracas down. He might want to fire it off now as opposed to waiting.
Yeah, and you can't really cast anything else that's in his hand right now, as it's all being locked up by the Thalia.
Yeah. And he's going to pass the turn back, so Paul might be able to use that Caracas to bounce the Thalia. We'll see.
You see Jason slide to the top of his hand here, so
yeah.
I think we're going to see
pick that up.
Paul show him some tricks here.
In his element.
Yeah, in his element.
Pick up my guy, can't replay it, go.
But no, no third land here for Paul, and so he can't follow up with anything.
Yeah. Janasiewicz going to play a Grove of the Burn Willows before casting a Sylvan Library.
And this is a 1-of in the deck. Traditionally very good against control decks, as it's a way to draw a bunch of extra cards. And with shuffle effects, you can kind of assemble your own Dividing Top. But if his life total isn't pressured here, it can also be very good against Paul as well, as a lot of the cards that Jason's going to be drawing are creature removal spells.
Yeah. And big Sylvan Library fan. Just a really nice 1-of. It's kind of crazy. Again, I always think of this card, it's like, it's so good. The first one's so good, but the backup copies don't do anything. So the decks that do play this, they normally just employ 1 copy.
Yep.
Rietzl going to cast a very honest Sarah Avenger on turn 4 before passing the turn back.
No Aether Vial shenanigans here, just casting it on the 4th turn.
Janasiewicz, it's time to go librarying. You're going to see the 3 cards of Deathbright Shaman, Hymn to Torak, and Abrupt Decay. He's going to decide how he wants to go about doing this. Now, for people who are new at Sylvan Library, give me a little breakdown.
So what happens is he essentially gets to replace his draw step by looking at the top 3 and setting 2 of them back. And he can pay an additional 4 life for each card he wants to draw beyond the first. So he gets a little bit of selection in his draw step, and if he wants to gas through all this stuff, he can pay 4 life a card to draw it all.
Okay. So it's like a green Sensei's Divining Top, kind of.
It's like green Divining Top mixed with green, some bootleg version of Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Okay.
If I had to distill it as succinctly as I possibly can.
Which you have done a very nice job of. Hymn to Torak will go to the grip. Other 2 will stay back, which of course were Deathbright Shaman and Abrupt Decay. So Janasiewicz is going to sacrifice a Verdant Catacombs, go down to 18, as there will be no fetching for Ravnica Shocklands, we think. We've seen some things today.
I've seen Grey Catch do it in his Death Shadow decks, so who knows. But this is part of the extra bonus of Sylvan Library, as we're seeing here. Jason didn't really like what he saw in the top 3, took the card he liked best, which was Hymn to Torak, and then gets to shuffle his deck with a fetch land.
Could just go Bloodbraid Elfing right now, too.
I like Bloodbraid Elf here a lot, as Jason has a lot of removal spells he can find off the top.
Well, Tarmogoyf isn't a removal spell, but it is a good magic card. And so Bloodbraid Elf is going to come across here for 3. Tarmogoyf, oddly enough, we've got our Tarmogoyf die out there is in, I believe it's a 1-2 right now.
I believe we have land and Lightning Bolt.
And Lightning Bolt, okay, so it's a 2-3. Yeah, his graveyard, Jason's graveyard is off the screen. So the old Tarmogoyf is going to be a 2-3.
And we talk about this all the time, but the back-to-back, the weekend dominance, winning both opens, it's in play for Jason so far. 4-0 is a great start.
Yeah, somebody dial up Jerry T. Let him know. Sarah Avenger going to come across for 3 in the air. Janasiewicz going to go down to 15.
And being stalled on lands with Horizon Canopy is a really rough spot.
Not the best place to be. He has to take 1 for every spell he wants to play. Does Rietzl.
And it's not a pain land. It actually is opponent damage, even if he's making colorless from it.
Stoneforge Mystic is going to show up. We'll see what equipment Paul wants to search up. He's got a couple options here. Batter Skull among them. Oh, Umazawa's Jite and Sword of Fire and Ice is going to go with the Jite and pass the turn back over to Janasiewicz. He's going to take a look at 3 cards to his Sylvan Library. You see Punishing Fire, Tarmogoyf, and a Wasteland. I wonder which one he's going to put to the top.
I think there's an argument for just taking all of these and paying the 8.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm actually much more aggressive with Sylvan Library than most people are. I regularly just pay 8 on the first one.
Well, he paid 4 for this one.
Sure.
So he is more than happy to do that. And the ability for Punishing Fire to kill the Stoneforge Mystic would actually bump Tarmogoyf into a 3/4.
Yeah, he has the ability to play multiple removal spells this turn and Wasteland the Caracas, which is just an awesome turn.
Jerry T on Twitter. Don't worry, I'm watching. Well, who are you rooting for, Jerry?
We miss you, Jerry.
Yeah. Him to Torak. Place on the stack here. 1 through 6 is what we'll be rolling. So, bye-bye. 6 will be a re-roll. We'll do a re-roll. That's a he's in the 6 hard lock. There's a 2. So let's see what cards Paul's going to discard. If they can let us know our spotter, that'd be fantastic.
So I'd imagine it's a priority for Jason to get rid of Stoneforge Mystic this turn.
Oh, okay. Paul discarded his 2 equipment, so there's that. Mm-hmm. I don't think he needs to. I don't think he needs to get rid of Stoneforge now. Yeah, he's just fine. Player's gonna move the graveyards on the screen for us, so you guys can watch at home. As those 2 lands for Janasiewicz, they're still tapped. Yeah. And now here's a. He can cast Punishing. Well, the way he's tapped mana, he can't actually play the Abrupt Decay to take care of the Sarah Avenger. I'm not entirely sure that he needs to, but he can just Punishing Fire, get the Stoneforge Mystic out of the way, even though Rietzl did discard 2 equipment.
Yeah, he's not doing anything else with the Punishing Fire this turn, and it puts the first creature in the graveyard, which is valuable as well.
Now Tarmogoyf is enormous, and we're coming across for 5, 6, 7, 8. Just a whole bunch of damage. Rietzl's in a world of trouble here. And now there's a Wasteland, going to take down the Horizon Canopy. Now you can make arguments, I guess, for both sides. Like, you want to leave him with the Horizon Canopy because he's taking damage, but there are multiple copies of Caracas in the deck. So.
Yeah, it's very close.
Aether Vial the draw here. Avenger going to come across for 3, going to put Janasiewicz down to 8. Rietzl just going to pass the turn back. So Janasiewicz will trigger the Sylvan Library again. You see a Tarmogoyf, Wasteland, and a Badlands.
Ugh. Brutal.
Yeah, that Wasteland is a good card. That's what that is. Just powerful, fun, interactive. Janasiewicz going to go down to 4. He uses it aggressively, too.
I like it.
Yeah.
Don't want to give Paul time to draw out of this. You know, he's got 6 spells in his hand.
Yeah, he's using his life total as a resource here.
No risk of getting burned out, certainly.
There's an Abrupt Decay, take care of the Sarah Avenger. Janasiewicz going to come across for 8. Swords Plowshare going to take care of the Tarmogoyf. Janasiewicz is going to gain 5 life, go up to 9. Rietzl will take 3, go down to 4. And then Wasteland will play the role of Fun Police here momentarily. And Janasiewicz even has a backup Tarmogoyf. So, you know, just using all of his mana and all of his spells the entire game. And
Yeah.
Rietzl says, that's enough for me, my friend. Jason Janasiewicz is going to win game number 1 here over Paul Rietzl. Punishing Junt up a game over Death and Taxes. We're going to move to the sideboards here. I've got Paul's in front of me, and I'll take a look at a copy of Mirran Crusader, 2 Wiltleaf Liege, 2 other Sworn Canonists, 2 copies of Cataclysm, a Ratchet Bomb, 2 Oblivion Ring, a Pithing Needle, 2 copies of Rest in Peace, a Grafdigger's Cage, and a Manriki Gusari. Rest in Peace is great here.
Yep. This gets rid of both Death Shaman and Tarmogoyf. Now, Jason has quite a few ways to remove it. You know, Abrupt Decays and potentially other enchantment removal in the sideboard, but certainly Jason is using his graveyard much more of a resource than Paul is.
Outside of that, I mean, there are some cards that are like kind of interesting here. I suppose like Paul can board in the Wiltleaf Lieges because Jason's deck has Liliana the Veil. Kind of get him with the discard thing.
Oh, you better believe it's coming in. Also outside of Lightning Bolt range and Abrupt Decay range, so that's a really well situated threat for the matchup.
There's some other cards here. I mean, there's a lot of options. A card like Oblivion Ring. You can see a card like Ratchet Bomb coming in. You know, those cards are abrupt decayable. if that's a word. So that's something that can happen. You know, you can make an argument for Pithing Needle to shut down a card like Wasteland or Deathrite Shaman or Liliana. You know, I think Paul's got a lot of options. It's hard to play a guessing game on what he's going to do. As you see, he's kind of going through the permutations right now.
Yeah, he has a lot of cards that you could describe as kind of being interchangeable. So he has a lot of ways to potentially shave out of his deck. On Jason's side of the table, we're looking at 2 Ancient Grudges, 2 Duresses, 3 Engineer Plagues, a Golgari Charm, a Grafdigger's Cage, a Life of the Loam, a Pyroblast, a Scavenging Ooze, 2 Surgical Extractions, and an Umazawa's Jete. I like the Umazawa's Jete a lot. I like the Scavenging Ooze a lot. I like the Golgari Charm quite a bit. Blake bringing in possibly 1 copy of Ancient Grudge, 2 feels potentially excessive to me. Although Paul has Aether Vial as well, so he may want to go up to 2 to fight Aether Vial plus equipment. And Engineer Plague is actually pretty reasonable, as Paul has a lot of 1 toughness creatures, some of them with overlapping creature types.
Well, we'll see how both players do sideboard here. As we've had some fun stuff so far this go around. Again, we saw Greg Hatch playing his psychotic Mono Blue Martyr deck, but he's 3-0 so far in games played. He missed round 1. He was a little late to the tournament, trying to find cards, all the other stuff, but he has not lost a match just yet. And then Job's deck. Gotta love the food chain.
Yep, out of left field. And I know Jacob Corey, 4-0 going into this round, 8-0 in games. One of Los Angeles' legacy scene's highest profile players, also doing quite well thus far.
Obviously, we're following Rietzl and a lot of other players here. We can take a look at how our players are doing right now. These guys are shuffling. You've got Rietzl sitting at 4-0, Jacob Corey, the Cupcake Man.
4-0-8-0.
Yeah, 4-0-8-0 with, is he playing Elves?
He's playing Blue-Red Delver.
Okay. Jonathan Joe, 3-0-1 with Food Chain. You got Sam Pardee, 3-1. Ricky Sitter, 3-1. The youngsters with a lot of success, as we see Greg Hatch, the 3-1 as we mentioned. Greg Mitchell, a name that doesn't stand out that much, but if we watch all that Open Series coverage, he won in Seattle last week with Bug Delver and Phil Din on the Leaving a Legacy column. Then you've got Matt Sperling, 3-1. Joe Lissette. I told you.
Putting on your rally caps. 1-1 to 2-1-1.
And then Nathan Holiday, the Grand Prix San Diego champion, already has a second loss, unfortunately. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, good players are already off to a really nice start here in this 9-round tournament.
Yeah, and Paul especially. Really fun to watch him do his thing here.
Yeah. Paul yesterday essentially lost playing for top 8 to Ricky Sitter in round 9 of 10. Not sure if Ricky was able to draw in the last round or if Paul would have been able to draw in, because as we saw with the standings, Vidianto Wajaya went 9-1 yesterday and was the 5 seed.
Yeah, was not on the play in the quarterfinals. That is crazy. And, you know, we had a roughly 700-person tournament where we were about 20 players short of an 11th round, which means that it requires really competitive records to make the elimination rounds. And so having someone X and 1 not be on the play in the top 8 is pretty crazy.
Having them not be the 1 or 2 seed either.
Yeah, it went down to 5th place.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's what happens when they show up in droves, as the Los Angeles community and the California community in general often do.
Yeah.
They often do.
Vegas, Phoenix, LA, San Diego.
That's where I want to go. Phoenix.
Phoenix?
I've never been before.
It's a great city.
Yeah.
I like it out there a lot.
I've never been to, Scottsdale or, was it Tucson?
Yeah, Tucson's, I think, a little bit further east.
Yeah, I've never been at any of those places. I've flown through Phoenix Airport once, but I've never been in an Open Series. There's been a Grand Prix there a couple of times over my competitive Magic life, but I've never gotten the opportunity to go. Everyone's pretty much said what you said. It's just a great place.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah. I went out there for a PTQ a few months ago, had a great time, and went out in Scottsdale the evening after the PTQ, had a great time, went to an Arizona's Cardinals game the Sunday after the PTQ. It was just a great weekend, had a lot of fun out in Arizona.
Cardinals win?
They did.
Nice.
They did.
Nice. So Paul Rietzl will be on the play for game number 2, playing against your standard Open champion. Punishing Jund seems like a tough matchup.
It's all removal spells or recurring removal spells and threats that are about as good or better than Paul's. Yeah. This is a very tough matchup.
And Paul doesn't really have anything crazy going on. He does have a Spirit of the Labyrinth in his main deck. I'm checking for Bramaz right now, but I don't see, and I see one. There's one Bramaz, some Flicker Wisp, some Thalias, a lot of the run-of-the-mill stuff. He's going to start off with a card that's not so run-of-the-mill in the deck, a Mishra's Factory.
Yeah, I asked Paul about the Mishra's Factory, and I'm a big fan of it. And I said, what's going on with the Mishra's Factory? And he sort of gave me this incredulous look and said, well, I'm an equipment deck. Why would I not want Mishra's Factory?
Well, there are definitely some costs to playing it.
Yeah, the Death and Taxes deck occasionally, when it doesn't have Aether Vial, will struggle to cast its spells in the same way that Merfolk struggles. Just not a lot of colored mana in the deck. Now, it's less taxed than Merfolk is. Merfolk is flushed with blue 2-mana creatures. Mm-hmm. That makes it really hard to cast in their 12 island deck or whatever it is when they don't have Aether Vial. But Death and Taxes has a similar issue at times.
Janasiewicz going to search out a swamp here with Verdant Catacombs, so he's going maybe on the basic strategy. You do see some Jund decks, a little heavier on basics, so you have to play around Wasteland, and sometimes they get loam locked as well. He's got 1 forest, 1 swamp. Also, it gives you a little bit of hedge against Blood Moon, which has been starting to show up a little bit more.
Yeah, that's why you don't see the mountain in the deck. First of all, red is sort of the tertiary color of the deck, and secondly, hedging around Blood Moon by adding a mountain doesn't make any sense, as your non-basic lands now fulfill that function.
Inquisition of Kozilek is going to show you Plains, Caracas, Rishadenport, and the old Woodlift Liege.
Thank goodness that wasn't Thoughtseize.
Yeah, busted. So we'll see what ends up happening. I don't think there was a Wasteland in there. I thought maybe for a second I caught one, but it is a Caracas and then a port.
Yeah. So a lot of utility lands, and again the Woodlift Liege, but very light on action. Really hard to beat a deck that's so good at 1-for-1ing.
Paul going to play a Mother Runes, pass the turn back. You see Janasiewicz has a Golgari Charm in his hand. Also just drawn a copy of Maelstrom Pulse. Now he also has a Hymn to Torak. Do you dare play the game?
No, I would much rather play either Dark Confidant or Golgari Charm this turn than him.
Coward. Golgari Charm is the choice here for Janasiewicz. Take care of the Mother of Runes with the -1/-1 mode, and Rietzl will draw a copy of Thalia for the turn, which he can protect with a Caracas. Look at those synergies at work.
Yeah. We saw this on display last game. I don't think Jason is going to be bamboozled again.
Liliana the Veil going to show up, but that's going to cost a little extra. Now there's a Dark Confidant from Janasiewicz. Putting a die on top, make sure he doesn't forget the trigger, pass the turn back to Rietzl. Paul will take a draw. We know he has Woodlift Liege. What else has he got? I think he may have drawn another one. Maybe.
A third white source of mana here.
Yeah, and he's got, so his draw was a Mother Runes. He has a port. He's going to drop down Woodlift Liege. That's a 4/4. Going to make Thalia into a 3/2. Come across here, Will Thalia.
And this is kind of the game plan Paul's trying to do. He can't outclass Jason for the entire game, but he can try to outpace him.
And there you do see the Elf Knight. Other green creatures get +1/+1, but more importantly, other white creatures get it, which will help Death and Taxes. And then if your opponent plays a spell or ability that makes you discard it, be it Hymn to Torak, Thoughtseize, or Liliana the Veil, you get it for free. The ultimate dodecapod.
Super Dodecapod. Obstinate Baloth is actually Super Pod.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I like the original the best, though.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I like dodecapod. Jason going to sacrifice Verdant Catacombs. Going to go searching here. We'll see if it's a basic or a non-basic.
The last Legacy Grand Prix I participated in, I actually had Guerrilla Tactics in my sideboard.
No, you show them.
For this matchup.
There you go. How did those perform?
Really poorly, except for the round that I was on camera where they were insane.
That's how that sure was. That
It's
against
exactly-
was it against Rabbits?
Yeah, it was against Rabbits. They were horrible the whole tournament. They were really good against them on camera. I did not win another match in the tournament. Rabbits went on to top 8. So it was really just the perfect tournament for all parties involved.
And now here we are in the booth.
Yeah, now I'm here hanging out with you.
Wands hung up, collecting dust. You see if Bayou will be searched out from the Verdant Catacombs. Jason down to 12.
And this Confidant is actually presenting kind of a risk for Jason here. It can block neither Woodlift Liege nor Thalia, and it's not clear he's going to be able to win the game terribly quickly here. So there are some very dangerous reveals in Jason's deck. You know, if he starts flipping over Lilianas and Bloodbraid Elves, he can easily lose this game.
Maelstrom Pulse will take care of the Liege. Jason will have to pass the turn after attacking with Dark Confidant. Rietzl draws another copy of Mishra's Factory. He has 2 of those in his deck. He also has a Rishadenport too, so he's considering the ramifications of maybe playing the port to tap a land, or playing a factory, firing up the other factory, get in for a bunch of damage, and maybe Dark Confidant does the work for him.
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of playing the factory here, as now Jason likely has all the mana he needs to cast whatever, and Paul's best angle of attack here is dealing as much damage as possible and hoping that the Confidant is able to finish off some of the job for him.
Looks like Rietzl's going to get aggressive. He fires up factory. He's going to pump the other one. This is going to be an attack here for 5. It's going to put Janasiewicz down to 7. Rietzl will follow up with a Mother of Runes to keep pushing damage through. Leaves up Caracas for Thalia in case. Dark Confidant, what do you show? Tarmogoyf. Down to 5 he goes. Jason draws a Bayou for his normal draw step here. And you can see his hand. 2 Liliana the Veil. Hymn to Torak. That Tarmogoyf.
Not a very good hand at handling this board.
So Janasiewicz going to take a look at his graveyard. No Grove of the Burn Willows down there yet, Jason. How do you deploy here?
I mean, it has to be, I guess Tarmogoyf has to be the best play that he has access to here, as it gives him a second colored blocker in play to mitigate Mother of Runes some amount. But this is really rough. Thalia doing a really good job of disrupting Jason here, not allowing him to play Liliana this turn as well.
And Janasiewicz not going to cast the Hymn to Torak. Rietzl going to draw it to Plains to go along through Schadenport. So Rietzl's basically just got what he's got on the table. He's got 2 Plains, a Caracas, which is working overtime with that Thalia, 2 copies of Mirsha's Factory. The big question here is, do you want to be attacking, or do you want that Dark Confidant to maybe do the job for you?
I think it has to be Dark Confidant. And you also need to be conscious of the fact that, Jason has mana up. If you go for an Alpha Strike and there's, another Abrupt Decay or a Lightning Bolt waiting for you, you could fall short. So if I'm in Paul's spot here, I'm going to pump the brakes on any attack that allows Jason to trade the Dark Confidant for value.
Especially with Paul at 19 too, he can wait a little bit.
Yeah, he's got a pretty advantaged position from here. He has a port to further constrain Jason the following turn. I think Paul's looking for some way to effectively attack, but the allowing Jason to trade that Dark Confidant for anything is pretty rough.
Well, if one player is going to find it, it's going to be him.
Yeah. This is Paul in his element.
Looking at a port in the Plains, taking his time. Going to fire up maybe a Factory here, yes. Maybe try to push through some damage here. Yep, in we go.
All right, well, Paul's figured out his attacks.
This one's interesting to me.
If I was in his seat, I probably would have just pumped the brakes with Mother of Runes in play, sort of stabilizing things, but
Yeah.
Paul's definitely got something in mind.
He's getting aggressive, man. Nope. Ooh,
Whoa.
wow.
Jason not even chump blocking with a Confidant.
I'm a little
here.
surprised here, too. No block with Bob. Maybe thinking I need some more action. Mother Rune's going to protect, give protection from green to the Factory. Follow up. Pass.
I feel like you got to do something with that Confidant inside of combat.
I guess the thought process I think here is, okay, Paul attacks like that. If Jason puts his Dark Confidant in front of Thalia, Paul's just going to bounce his Thalia with Caracas. So is there a good block there for Dark Confidant?
Chump blocking the Mishra's Factory even is fine.
That's a bolt. And Janasiewicz goes down to 2. And Thoughtseize drawn.
Oof.
Yeah. Not you, Thoughtseize.
Not at this stage of things.
No. I need better.
And it's funny, the Death and Taxes deck certainly does not have any burn in the deck, but it does use its weird disruptive creatures to push through damage at various spots here, as Jason just casts the Thoughtseize and packs it up.
All right, he wanted to get a little info. There was no info to be given, and we'll be moving on to a third game between Paul Rietzl and Jason Janasiewicz. Again, our Standard Open champion, looking for a little back-to-back action. We got close with Tyler Wilkerson in Orlando earlier this year, but Jerry's still safe for now.
Paul also had a, potentially fell short of an excellent weekend here, starting off very well and falling a little bit short of the elimination rounds yesterday.
So both players going to look at the sideboards here. Paul giving some things some thought with a goofy face. But
Paul's a very expressive Magic player.
That is definitely true.
I think that, if anything, Paul was a little underappreciated / disrespected early on in his Magic career because he's a funny dude. He's pretty goofy. He's gregarious at the table. He doesn't have that mannerism of, a stone cold killer that you associate with a lot of the top players. But Paul is one of the absolute best players on earth and has been for a while.
Looks like he's basically pretty happy with his configuration. Janasiewicz is going to change some things here. Rietzl will he'll be on the draw this go around. Janasiewicz winning game 1. So we'll see if Jun can get out early, maybe with a little Deathrite Shaman action.
He's also, of all the in the Magic community, of all the high-level pros that have never really stepped into the booth, he is on the top of my list of someone who would want to give commentary a stab, because his insight and his humor are just both awesome.
He would be a delight to work with.
Yeah.
Without question.
So, Paul, if you're watching this replay at some point, you let us know. We'll figure out something.
Yeah, we'll talk.
We'll talk.
My big question, I think, for this tournament right now is how much Bug Delver do we have in the house, and how well is it going to perform this weekend? I think with Standard, Esper has been laying a foundation over the past, it feels like 10 days. We saw it one here. We saw basically a mirror in the finals between Sitter and Janasiewicz, excuse me. Brad Nelson's in the top 8 of Cincinnati right now with it, as is Kyle Bogomies and a couple other players. That deck has really solidified itself coming into the Invitational in Charlotte next weekend as probably the standard deck to beat.
I believe that's true. I also think that most players are approaching the Esper and blue-white matchup from the wrong angle in terms of how they're trying to sideboard for it. I see a lot of people adding 4 and 5 and 6 mana cards to their deck to try to, outlast or go long with. And because the Esper deck is flushed with counters and, when you're sideboarding into these 4 and 5 and 6 mana spells, it makes their dissolves and syncopates even better. I think just being low to the ground, if you're a black deck and you're playing against Esper and blue-white control, I think 4 Thoughtseize and then 4 Duress and then anything else you have in mind is the way to start. And I think a lot of players are starting with 4 and 5 and 6 mana spells as their way to approach the matchup too. So I feel like there's still work to be done on the other side with players' understanding of how they need to be approaching the matchup.
And with Esper solidifying itself and kind of the deck to beat in Standard, you look at Bug Delver over the past month, really, even though Legacy doesn't change nearly as fast, that deck has really solidified itself as arguably the best deck or currently the deck to beat.
Well, I think it may be the best Delver of Secrets deck. I think there's a reasonable argument for that because Delver of Secrets, paired alongside Abrupt Decay, answers a lot of the cards that people use to fight tempo decks, whether it's Tarmogoyf, whether it's Umezawa's Jitte, whatever. Counterbalance as well. So it may be the best Delver of Secrets shell at this point, although Blue, White, Red, and Rug even are still in large representation.
Yeah.
Part of that is just there's, card availability issues. The dual lands are expensive, so once you invest, you may not want to be investing in the second set of dual lands to be able to play whatever you want. And each deck has its own different incentives. And people also get comfortable playing with particular cards and tricks and what have you. So there's a lot of factors working towards certain people gravitating towards specific decks.
Yeah, a lot of the time when I hear about people playing Bug Delver, it's always a situation where it's like, well, I've been playing this deck for a while, and, I've just been working on a couple of the sideboard slot, playing a couple copies of Golgari Charm now, and True Nemesis made the deck a lot better, and that's oftentimes what you hear a lot of, just people who have been playing and working with that strategy for a long time. As we are underway in game number 3 here, Deathrite Shaman is going to start things off.
Legacy is a really complicated format, and I think that it's better to be playing something you're familiar with than something that may be objectively better.
Is that why we play Bird and Goblins?
That's part of it. I mean, I think that my, the margins I pick up playing a deck proficiently outweigh playing something objectively better. I feel you probably feel the same way about Goblins. You've had good tournament success even when it may not be the best thing to be doing.
Well, it's never the best thing to be doing. I can promise you that. This Wasteland is going to take care of a value here.
Very aggressive opening from Paul here. You rarely see someone Wasteland on the draw in the face of a Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, Paul could have played an Aether Vial. Decided to go with maybe the Mana Screw approach, especially when his opponent looks like he's on a mulligan. So either way, looks like Deathrite Shaman going to remove a land, and we're going to go Tarmogoyfing. We think we are. There it is. You see the cards left in Janisiewicz's hand. Lightning Bolt, Umezawa's Jitte, and an Ancient Grudge.
Yeah, he's really well set up for this match, assuming that he's able to draw more mana. He's got Punishing Fire and Umezawa's Jitte are both very powerful tools.
Yeah. Liliana the Veil. No third mana source yet. But we're gonna see we're probably gonna see an Ancient Grudge get cast here. Get that Vial off the board. Grow that Tarmogoyf a little bit. There goes Rietzl's land. Deathrite Shaman doing what Deathrite Shaman does, being awesome.
Yep, also gets an instant and an artifact in the graveyard.
Yep, Tarmogoyf coming across for 3 now. Rietzl going to go down to 17. Janasiewicz off to a very nice start, even though he doesn't have a second land yet.
Although he doesn't have a lot of sources of mana left from this Deathrite Shaman currently.
Rietzl draws a card. It's a copy of Thalia. You see Paul's taking a look at a Horizon Canopy and a Crocus. The Canopy is just a 1 of in his deck. Crocus he has 3 of. And of course 4 Wastelands, 4 Rishadan Ports. Surprisingly a few copies of Mishra's Factory, 2 of those, and then 10 Plains.
I'm not a huge Horizon Canopy fan in this deck. I feel like the damage you're taking is not outweighed by potentially drawing a card when a lot of your cards are so low impact.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way, honestly. I've never been a big Horizon Canopy fan.
Well, I like it in Maverick when, you have neither Reliquary to get fancy with and you have some more powerful high impact draws, but neither of those things apply to Death and Taxes.
Swamp the draw. No? Thalia's going to do a nice job of bottlenecking Jason's mana a little bit, as Jason can't cast Thalia this turn. And as you mentioned, there aren't a lot of activations of Deathrite Shaman left. I think there's only one land left in the graveyard.
Right, there's the land that got wastelanded many moons ago.
Yeah. So they're going to have to use it pretty wisely here. There's Janasiewicz in the tank here, getting a taste of his shirt.
It's complicated playing against Death and Taxes. I think that part of the deck is often undersold.
I agree.
There's a lot of weird disruptive elements, a lot of different things to play around. Flicker Wisp and Mother of Runes are headaches when they're involved in things.
Umezawa's Jite the choice here for Jason, using his last Deathrite Shaman activation to get the equipment in play. Tarmogoyf scales down to a 2-3 because there are no more lands in the graveyard. There's an artifact, Aether Vial, and the card that killed it, which is an instant, Ancient Grudge. So we'll see if Paul has found a source of plowshares or anything yet, as Thalia's going to come across into the red zone. Janasiewicz going to go down to 17. I think Rietzl drew a Wasteland.
Yep. He has
Which is, it's okay. It's not great, though, right?
Yeah, it's sort of not really mana denial this turn, as Jason has no lands in the graveyard for Deathrite Shaman, so it's pretty aggressive to use the Wasteland here in lieu of playing a 3-drop.
Paul might be considering casting a card like, I think he's got his Brimaz in his hand.
He also has Mirren Crusader, I believe.
Okay. Yes, he does. So, pro-green, pro-black, that text matters.
Pretty well suited for...
Excuse me?
Pretty well suited for a game against Tarmogoyf and Deathrite Shaman.
The Human Knight. Impulse sideboard, a fun of.
Yep.
He's got one in his main, too. So Jason draws a copy of Grove of the Burn Willows. He's going to suit up the Tarmogoyf. But that thing's not going to be able to go anywhere. Just going to be on defense now.
Yeah, this is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
and you can see Jason sort of, he set this game up assuming, well, he's got Source of Plowshares or he's dead. And now there's this random one of the, he's like, okay, I guess the game keeps on going.
Yeah, this doofus creature in Mirror Crusader, but those protection clauses play a role. It's not there on accident. Paul drew a, looks like a Mishra's Factory for the turn.
And I like the addition of Mishra's Factory to this deck quite a bit. Very critical in Paul winning that second game.
Yeah. Also has Stoneforge Mystic that he's had for a long time. Got that Canopy, got the Brimaz. He just basically needs to deploy these threats. I feel like he's got the cards that can win him the game. He just needs to deploy the threats now.
Yeah, the Grudge in the graveyard complicates matters, certainly. So he can't just try to go get a piece of equipment onto his Mirror Crusader and win the game that way.
Brimaz in the house. Gonna leave Wasteland up. Could leave Caracas up if he wanted to, as Caracas could actually protect Brimaz and Thalia, but he chooses not to.
Well, he's only got a Plains into Caracas.
Oh, excuse me.
Mishra's Factory Wasteland, so
my apologies. There's a Dark Confidant. Not the most exciting draw here from Jason.
Well, he definitely needs to get more mana to sort of power through what Paul's doing here.
There's a third white source for Paul.
And is it time for Mirror Crusader to get aggressive?
Uh-oh. I think it might want to hang back. Okay.
Uh-uh.
All right. Do your thing and do it well.
I mean, Paul can't sit here all day against the Dark Confidant with Jason at 17. He's got to start doing something. This is a big hit.
It's going to be an attack here for 4. 2 from the first strike, 2 from the regular damage.
Yeah.
Double strike, as it were. Paul going to play a land here. It's going to be the Plains. And there is Stoneforge Mystic, so it's time to go searching.
Yeah, I mean, now he has Caracas plus Brimaz on defense to just ignore the Jite, essentially.
He's looking at Batter Skull, Sword of Fire and Ice. We know he has Numazawa Jite in his 75. Not sure if it's in after sideboard. He also has Manriki Gusari in his sideboard. I'd be a little surprised if he brought that in.
Yeah, I like getting either the Sword or the Chite here. The problem is that, again, Jason has Ancient Grudge in the sideboard, so Paul's only going to really get one shot in, most likely, with whatever he goes and gets. Now, as long as Paul is able to keep Thalia in play, it's actually a pretty big constraint for Jason to leave up 2 mana to threaten Ancient Grudge on the flashback, especially now that he's taking these hits. So it's good for Paul to get a threatening piece of equipment, and it has to be something that can be productive even if Paul only hits once. So that basically takes Batter Skull off the table.
Gonna go Wastelanding on the Grove. Tarmogoyf's gonna grow a little bit since there's a land in the graveyard. And Paul's already played his land for the turn, so he's gonna pass it back. Janasiewicz gonna reel Abrupt Decay. He'll take 2, go down to 11. He'll draw another copy of Ancient Grudge.
So he did bring in the second.
Yeah.
I thought that he would certainly bring in 1. I did not know if he would bring in 2.
And right now that actually complicates things, but Paul doesn't know that. Because Paul is definitely playing around the 1 in the bin, obviously. Maybe trying to induce a little bit, get a GT because he doesn't really care about that card very much. That dies to the Grudge, and then, you move on with the Vial in your hand and maybe draw another Stoneforge Mystic, what have you. But the backup Grudge really kind of shuts off all his equipment now.
Mm-hmm.
Deathrite Shaman has 2 pieces of fuel. The Wasteland on Paul's side and the Grove of the Burnwell is on Jason's side. 3 mana, this is going to be an Abrupt Decay. Vermaz is the target. Rietzl could bounce this with Caracas if he wants to.
And I think that Paul was really hoping to avoid some sort of draw like that.
Yeah.
As now, Numazawa Jite is potentially going to be online.
Well, I think what Jason is forced to do is block with Thalia and then bounce it with Caracas, so the damage doesn't happen. Yep, that's exactly what he's going to do. Since Thalia is a legendary creature and all.
Right.
And now Jason is tapped out of mana, so maybe Paul tries to strike here.
Well, I certainly think, Paul still has to concern himself with getting hit with the Jite once because of this Mirror Crusader dies and the House of Cards collapses. So I think he's going to just try to replay the turn he just had unless he's likely to hit for lethal.
Paul doing some math here. What happens if I play Jite, equip it, and then I go attack with a Mirror Crusader, I deal 2 damage, I get 2 charge counters. So that's an attack for 2, and then I pump, that's attack for 6, that's 8 total.
Right.
Now, the thing that he can do is if he plays and equips Jite on Mirror Crusader, he'll have 4 charge counters on there. Because the first hit and the second hit. So that's actually pretty good.
Yep. But it still potentially leaves him in a position where he's getting hit by the Tarmogoyf on the way back.
Yeah, that's the bigger problem. But, again, how big of a problem is that really, right? Because let's say the Paul's turn is play Jite, equip on a Mirror Crusader, attack, deal you 4, get my 4 charge counters, kill your Confidant, kill your Deathrite Shaman. I have a charge counter left on my Crusader. You hit me with your Tarmogoyf. If you have 2 charge counters, your 2 charge counters don't kill my Mirror Crusader because I just pump.
Well, the concern is if Jason draws Abrupt Decay or some way to blow up the Jite, then the remaining 2 counters can take care of the Mirror Crusader.
Sure.
And then Paul's up against it. And it looks like this position is favorable enough that Paul may be able to afford being a little bit conservative.
Now, again, we know he has the Grudge in the graveyard, and he has the Mystery Grudge in his hand. Well, it looks like Paul might be getting a little aggressive, so here we go. Play the Jite, equip it. We're getting in with both creatures. Offering up a trade of Stoneforge Mystic for Dark Confidant.
So I had to imagine Paul's intent here is to take care of Deathrite Shaman.
That's what it looks like to me. The question for Jason is, do you want to block? And if so, is there a good reason to?
Well, I don't think he can afford to take this enormous hit and leave his Dark Confidant in play. He has to put it in front of something.
All right. Bob does get in front. First strike damage. Crusader will deal 2. Janasiewicz will go down to 9, 2 charge counters. See if Paul has any effects before damage here, before regular damage. So he could kill Dark Confidant to leave his Stoneforge Mystic alive. I'm not sure how important that is.
Sure.
That's an option available to him. He's just going to pump twice. So that's going to be attack here for 6. It's going to put Janasiewicz down to 3, and then charge counters will come back on. Those will trade. He can kill Death right now if he wants to. He does. Going to play a Port, going to play a Vial, pass a turn back. And what this basically says, Patrick, is what you mentioned, which is Tarmogoyf gets to attack, and it's priced into killing Mirror Crusader.
Yeah. But it does make me question why Paul was in such a rush to get that Dark Confidant on the table. Because right now, you know, Jason's at 3, and it's not clear Paul has the tools to really close the game from this point, or at least Jason has some time. Now, there is a Mistress Factory in play that Paul gets to threaten with.
And so I was going to mention, I think Paul might be thinking, okay, that's fine. Like, if you hit me or whatever, that's whatever. Because, like, I can threaten you with a factory. You're a little bit choked on mana. That's a fetch land, which is going to pay a life. He's going to go down to 2. His turn right now might be for Janasiewicz of deploying Liliana.
Yeah, but I'm not. That's my entire point in all this is I'm not sure it's fine.
I think it might be okay. He plays Liliana, makes Paul sacrifice the Mirror Crusader, attack with Tarmogoyf, deal you 4, get 2 charge counters, your move. What's the worst you can do?
Are you saying from Jason's side of this, or from
Yeah,
Paul's?
if I'm Jason, no,
I'm saying this is good setup for Jason. I'm curious why. Now, I'm curious why Paul was interested in trading the Stoneforge Mystic for the Dark Confidant.
Okay, gotcha.
Because now an Edict effect is turned on. It wasn't before.
Gotcha.
Dark Confidant could have just potentially have killed Jason on his upkeep.
Gotcha.
No, this setup's great for Jason. He's definitely coming back here.
Okay. Yeah, so Liliana's going to take care of that. 2 J counters there. So Janasiewicz is at a virtual 6 life right now. Pass the turn back. Vial going to tick up. If Paul remembers. Uh-oh. We'll see.
So I guess he has to just animate his factory here.
Just probably priced into doing this.
Yeah.
See where it's going. He's just going to kill it off. So Janasiewicz is going to stay at that virtual 2. Well, was a virtual 6, now it's just 2. Follow for Rietzl here. Looks like it's going to be a Thalia, and it is. There's Horizon Canopy. Pass it back.
So Paul still has the Jitte contained for the time being, as he still has Caracas plus Thalia.
Tarmogoyf the draw here for Janasiewicz. About 8 minutes left here between these 2 players.
Yeah, there's been some slug matches right here. It's been grindy.
Janasiewicz, that grudge in his hand is a secret.
Yes.
Rietzl does not know about that. There's still the grudge in the graveyard. Looks like Janasiewicz is ready to discard with Liliana, excuse me. It's a little risky when you know your opponent has Woodleaf Leech in their deck.
Yes.
Well, discarding a Plains.
But at least in that world, if that's the thing that happens, Jason can be like, all right, I'm going to hold back on defense this turn, play a creature to block, and try to set up shop that way.
Tarmogoyf. A little block, a little bounce. Janasiewicz has free reign. Gonna play Tarmogoyf. Rietzl will gain a life. We'll go to 11. Has to do it via Grove. 2, 4, 5 Tarmogoyfs in the house. Rietzl untapping very quickly. Puts a counter on the Vial. Forgot last turn, remember this one. We know he has Thalia, and we're not sure what else he drew. Might be time to potentially cash in Horizon Canopy, not sure. Drew Swords. It's a big draw. There's Thalia.
Yeah, Swords is definitely helpful. Although it's possible with Liliana plussing this turn and Paul being forced to use the plow that he might lose Thalia once this is all said and done.
It's tough, though. You look at Jason's hand, he's got a Pulse and a Bloodbraid Elf. All right, so Liliana is going to try to make Paul sacrifice this. So now Thalia's going to get picked up via Caracas. In come the attackers. Paul likely going to cast his Swords to Plowshares. Get that thing out of here. No GT counters for you.
The life gain really important for Jason here, but Paul's still sort of working at something resembling parity.
Yeah. That Tarmogoyf is going to grow a little bit because Liliana's placed in the graveyard. So we attack for 5. Rietzl's going to go down to 6. We're even up in life totals, but this board is pretty complicated. And Shev's looking at a Pulse and a Bloodbraid. Again, has grudges in the graveyard. Going to leave a green mana available to flashback a grudge if he deems that necessary. Do you like tagging anything with a grudge right now?
Well, I think the Jitte is the more threatening card. I mean, if he's making a move now, it's going to be on that vial.
Okay.
I would assume.
He is going to flash back, and it looks like he is going after the vial.
Yep. And I do like this play. You know, Jason's pretty low on life, and, you know, Paul still has the Tarmogoyf covered for the time being with Caracas plus Thalia. So a second instant speed creature might complicate things quite a bit.
How about a Source of Plowshares?
That also complicates things.
Get that out of here. Jason gains 5 life. He's going to go up to 12. Rietzl going to follow up. He's going to play a Thalia, protect it with a Caracas, pass the turn back. Has the ability to crack Horizon Canopy if he'd like. Jason going to draw a land finally. Let's spin the Cascade wheel, shall we? Now, it's no lock that the card that he cascades into he can cast because of Thalia. If it's a spell, you need to pay 1 more, which he doesn't have. And I think Jason realizes that and says, I don't know if I want to do this.
Yeah, I mean, he has the option of basically using his turn to Maelstrom Pulse away or grudge away the Jitte, set Paul behind 1 turn with Thalia by using Maelstrom Pulse on it, or doing a really risky Bloodbraid Elf, where it's huge upside if you find something like Tarmogoyf or even Dark Confidant, but it's really bad for Jason if he turns over one of his spells. Now the question is, does he have enough time to wait for 1 more mana so he has the upside of revealing a spell as well?
Problem is, I don't think he does because Paul has a port.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
There.
I don't think he does.
So we just got to cross the fingers here.
And I think he's going to go search out a green source here. He's going to go get a Badlands. I think he's going to probably search out a Bayou now. Make sure that he has a double green mana. Because now he's going to have double green, double red, plenty of black, all that good stuff. So no short rounds today on camera.
No, they're not.
We've had players just slugging it out.
I mean, Death and Taxes versus Punching Junk can get to these spots, because the Jund deck is just trying to set up his removal. Death and Taxes is pretty resilient to removal as far as creature decks goes.
Taking a look at the cards in the graveyard. All right, how many creatures do I have to hit? So many powerful spells in the deck for Jason. And he's just going to pass the turn back, fetching right now. Horizon Canopy going to get sacrificed. Good to go. Paul going to draw a card.
Pretty gutsy use there by Paul. If there was an instant speed removal spell, it could have been some amount of trouble.
Looks like Risa has a Sarah Avenger, and a mystery card. The mystery card, it looks like it may be a Rest in Peace. Rietzl going to start. Attack for 2. Put Janasiewicz down to 9. Yep. Those are the 2 cards. Sarah Avenger, Rest in Peace. There's your Avenger. Rietzl going to leave up the port and the Caracas, pass the turn back. Will he port is the question. You see Grudge is going to get flashback here.
Pays the extra mana because of Thalia.
Yep. Well, we're going to go porting, it looks like. Yeah, Shevich's best draw right now might be a land.
Yeah. Although you can tell Paul is really, I mean, he's done some really interesting lines here. I think he has a very good sense of the nature of Jason's hand, especially the cracking of fetch landing and then passing without doing anything. Really represents that it might have been Bloodbraid Elf, and now he's loath to actually cast it because he understands the implication of Thalia being in play.
He gave away a little bit of information there by doing that. Now, if he would have cast Bloodbraid Elf, he would have hit that Thoughtseize. That's on the top of his deck that he drew this turn. So, it's kind of interesting because he doesn't want to hit Thoughtseize anyway.
Yeah.
You know? Just has to pass turn back in for 5. We go. Janasiewicz going to go down to 4.
Can't even cast the Maelstrom Pulse in his hand.
Rietzl with the Plains.
This is...
passes. We've got a port. That's an Abrupt Decay. Can cast that one. Can take care of the serve. Enter with that bad boy. Pass it back. Rietzl going on tap. He'll take a draw. Let's see what Paul finds this go around. He's going to start by shoving into the red zone.
Let's see, Paul shaking his head back and forth.
Don't do it to me.
Saying, please, no.
Don't do it to me. Yep, there's an abrupt decay. So Rietzl going to go down to 2. He drew a stone for its Mystic. Gonna play that and go searching for an equipment. Which one will it be?
He has brought an Oblivion Ring.
Yep. Looks like he might be going straight for Batter Skull. And he is.
It's a bigger threat outside of Abrupt Decay range. Also something that Jason cannot Inquisition out of his hand.
Port, as we're in extra turns. Do you cast Bloodbraid? Do you cast Maelstrom Pulse? And that is the question. Was it better to search for that or Sword? There's Bloodbraid Elf.
Unclear.
Yeah. Liliana, nope.
Cannot be cast.
Can't cast it. No.
And Paul, no hesitation. You can tell he set up all of these lines with Bloodbraid and the spell in mind.
Because if Rietzl got Sword, game's over. Now, it looks like he's going to try to bounce. I think it's only legendary creature on Caracas. I do not think it's a legendary permanent.
Yeah, I think that Caracas bouncing other legendary lands would have come up by now.
Yeah. Paul. Oh! I thought you could. Rietzl going to draw a card. It's a port. Into the red zone we go. Bloodbraid Elf is priced into having to block Thalia.
Yeah, and now Paul can simply hard cast the Batter Skull in his hand now.
Yeah, so he has a block there. It goes down to 1. It's turn 2. Okay. Rietzl. He's going to hard cast Batter Skull. The 6 mana necessary to do it because of Thalia. Get your Germ token out there. Pass it back. Turn 3. Thoughtseize. That is it.
Yep.
Paul Rietzl is going to win this match 2-1.
Just awesome.
And
Paul
quite the duel.
Paul shaking his head here.
Really going to make fun of him later for trying to Caracas and Umazawa's Jite.
Well, that was nice. I do think that, I would be curious to talk to him when I get the chance about running the Stoneforge Mystic into the Dark Confidant there, because it feels like you having Edict Protection is very valuable in that spot because one of his elves is Liliana the Veil. Plus, he may have Diabolic Edict or whatever else in his sideboard on top of that.
Yep.
And his Dark Confidant is actually a liability in that spot. So I am interested to get his thoughts on the way that game played out when the opportunity in between rounds.
I mean, there was obviously a lot of decisions